So now we're 7 weeks into our process and we're ready to rack our mead for the final time. I've got the mead set up here on a little bit of an incline. What we want to do is take the mead off but leave behind the little bit of sediment. We're going to rack it off the sediment and into our bottling vessel. So I'm going to remove my bung and airlock, and I'm going to insert my rod right down to the bottom. I'm going to draw on the siphon. And we're going to rack the entire carboy into our bottling vessel. So if any of your friends are getting married, you might want to consider making a batch of mead, because in the old days, the mead maker would give the newlywed couple a month's worth of mead. That's a moon's worth, and that's where we get the term honeymoon. And during that month, it was hoped that the couple would sire a son. And if a son was sired, the mead maker would be praised for his art. As I'm siphoning, I'm trying to keep the tip above the sediment so that I leave all the sediment behind. You'll notice that there's very little sediment left in the carboy, and that's a good thing because that means you'll have very little sediment in your wine bottles. Beauty. That's nice. We've waited this long, and now finally we can have a taste. Very nice. Before bottling the mead, I'm going to add 2 cups of dissolved honey, which will start a secondary fermentation and produce the effervescence that I want, the bubbles that I want in my mead. So I'm just pouring some very hot water, about 2 cups worth, into my dissolving vessel. And then I'm going to add my honey. And I'm stirring now to make sure that it's completely dissolved before adding into my bottling vessel. Now I'm going to take my dissolved honey and pour it into my bottling vessel. And as I pour it in, I'm going to make sure I stir it around really well just to distribute all that dissolved honey. We're ready to bottle now. So I've tilted my bottling vessel, I've inserted my rod right down to the bottom, and I've got my siphon. A very handy thing on the siphon is this little stopper. It'll stop the flow when I need to stop it. So I may be stopping it every once in a while, especially in between bottles, so that I can put the top on the bottle. It's better. And here we go, we start the siphon. Before I started using pop tops, I used to use regular wine bottles and put corks in them. But I found that the ginger mead sometimes was too effervescent, and some of the bottles would pop their corks. And in the morning I'd wake up and there'd be a big puddle of mead in the basement, and I'd have to clean up a big mess. Since I started using pop tops, I haven't had that problem. If you don't have pop top bottles and are corking, just use 1 cup of dissolved honey. Otherwise you might have an explosion on your hands. Oh, am I? No. Thought I was losing it there. Traditionally, meads that used a strong flavored honey, like a heather honey, would need to be aged up to 7 or 8 years. But because we're using a light honey, and also especially because we're flavoring it, this mead will be ready to drink in a couple of weeks. Whoa! And there we go. That's the end of it. So we finished our bottling.